Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship looked old and beaten up from the outside. The paint was chipped, and some parts seemed to barely hold together. But Jake knew the truth. Everything about his ship was a lie. "Captain, we have a message coming in," said Lieutenant Ryan Brooks from his station. The young officer tried to look worried, but Jake could see him fighting back a smile. "Put it through," Jake said in a tired voice. Admiral Grace Kelly appeared on the screen. Her gray hair was pulled back tight and her uniform looked perfect as always. Behind her, Jake could see the command center on Earth. It looked busy and full of panic. "Captain Morrison, we have bad news," the admiral said. "Our scouts report a large alien fleet moving toward Earth. The Zephyrian Empire is coming." Jake made his face look scared. "How many ships, Admiral?" "At least 300 warships, maybe more." Grace paused and looked down at her papers. "Jake, I need you to fall back to Earth. We cannot fight them in open space." "Yes, Admiral, we will return home right away." Jake cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. Set course for Earth. Make it look like we are running scared." Ryan smiled now. "Should I send out a distress signal? Make it sound like we are about to wet ourselves?" "Good idea. Make sure other ships hear it too. The more scared we sound, the better." Jake walked to the window and looked out at space. Far away, hidden in an asteroid field, was the real secret. The USS Sovereign sat there, looking like nothing more than a big mining station. No one would guess it was the most powerful ship ever built by humans. His communication device buzzed. It was a private message from Commander Lisa Park, head of Earth's spy network. "Jake, the Zephyrians took the bait. They think we are weak and stupid. Their Admiral Vextar is already planning victory parties." Jake typed back quickly. "How long do we have?" 2 days, maybe 3 if we get lucky. Are you ready to play your part?" "Always ready, Lisa. My crew knows what to do." Jake put away his device and thought about the last 6 months. Every time they met Zephyrian scouts, they made sure to look weak. They let their weapons miss on purpose. They pretended their shields were breaking when they were barely scratched. They even had some crew members act hurt when nothing was wrong. It was the greatest acting job in human history. The Zephyrians had fallen for it completely. They sent messages back to their empire saying humans were no threat. Their technology was old and broken. Their ships were slow and weak. It would be an easy fight. If only they knew the truth. Dr. Nathan Cole had been working for 10 years on new human technology. In secret labs hidden all over Earth and beyond, the best human minds had created weapons and ships that were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The USS Sovereign was just the beginning. Hidden throughout the solar system were hundreds of other ships, all disguised as space junk, mining platforms, or broken satellites. When the time came, they would all reveal themselves. "Captain," called engineer Amy Foster from her station, "I am reading some strange signals from the outer system. Could be Zephyrian scouts." Jake nodded. "Let them see us. Make sure our engines look like they are barely working. Can you make some sparks fly from the control panels?" Amy grinned. "I can make this whole bridge look like it is about to explode." "Perfect, but keep it safe. We do not want anyone actually getting hurt." Jake's crew had trained for this moment for months. Every person on the ship knew their role in the Great Deception. They had practiced looking scared, acting confused, and pretending their equipment was failing. The hardest part was not laughing. On Earth, Admiral Grace Kelly was playing her part too. She held meetings with world leaders, all of them acting, terrified of the coming invasion. They made plans to evacuate cities and hide in underground bunkers. They sent out calls for help to other alien species, begging for protection. But in secret, Grace was preparing for something very different. Deep under the Pacific Ocean, massive weapon platforms were getting ready to rise from the sea floor. In hidden bases on the Moon and Mars, thousands of human soldiers were putting on their best armor and checking their most advanced weapons. The Zephyrian Empire thought they were about to conquer a weak and helpless planet. Instead, they were flying straight into the greatest trap ever set in the history of the galaxy. Jake's communication device buzzed again. This time it was a message from Colonel Maria Santos, who was in charge of defending Earth's orbital stations. Jake, my people are ready. We have been practicing looking panicked all week. When the Zephyrians arrive, they will think we are running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Good work, Maria. Remember, we need them to commit everything they have. If even one ship escapes to warn the Empire, our plan falls apart. Do not worry. Admiral Vexitar is too proud to hold anything back. He wants to crush us completely. Jake smiled as he looked out at the stars again. Admiral Vexitar had no idea what was waiting for him. The Zephyrian Empire had spent decades conquering weaker species. They had never faced humans before. They were about to learn that humans were very, very different from everyone else in the galaxy. The USS Liberty continued its slow journey back to Earth, sending out weak distress signals and pretending to limp through space. Behind them, hidden Zephyrian scouts watched and reported back to their fleet. Everything was going exactly according to plan. Admiral Vexitar stood in the command center of his flagship, the Dominator. Around him, 300 Zephyrian warships moved through space like a pack of hungry wolves. His scaled skin glowed with excitement as he watched the human solar system grow larger on his screens. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "we are receiving more human distress signals. They sound very frightened." Vexitar laughed, showing his sharp teeth. Of course they are frightened. They know death is coming for them. On the bridge screens, he could see recordings of human ships. They looked like flying garbage cans held together with tape and hope. Their weapons were weak, their shields were pathetic, and their crews seemed to panic at the first sign of trouble. "How did such a weak species ever make it to space?" asked his second in command. "Luck," Vexitar replied, "but their luck has run out." Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Alex Turner was getting his ships ready for the greatest performance of his life. His squadron of 12 defense ships was preparing to meet the Zephyrian fleet in what would look like a desperate last stand. "Remember," Alex told his pilots over the radio, "we need to look brave but hopeless. Fight hard, but make sure your shots miss most of the time. Let them damage your ships, but not too much. We still need to fly these things." "Copy that, Commander," came the replies from his squadron. Each pilot had spent weeks practicing how to fight badly on purpose. Alex looked at his instruments. His ship, the Guardian, looked like an old patrol boat from the outside. The Zephyrians would never guess that hidden inside was technology that could destroy their entire fleet. But not yet. First, they had to spring the trap. On the moon, Colonel Maria Santos watched the approaching enemy fleet through her telescope. Around her, what looked like a small military base was actually buzzing with activity. Hundreds of soldiers were putting the finishing touches on their act. "Places, everyone," Maria called out. "When they get here, I want to see the best panic in military history. Scream, run around, drop things. Make them think we have no idea what we are doing." Sergeant Tony Kim raised his hand. "Colonel, what? If some of us forget we are acting and actually get scared? Then you will fit right in," Maria laughed. "But remember, we have practiced this 100 times. Trust your training and trust each other." Deep in the asteroid belt, the USS Sovereign continued to look like a harmless mining station. Captain Ben Hughes walked through its corridors, checking on his crew. The ship was so large that it took 20 minutes to walk from one end to the other. "How are the weapon systems, Chief?" Ben asked Engineer Danny Wright. "All ready, Captain. The moment we drop our disguise, we can start shooting. These aliens will not know what hit them." "Good, and the fighter squadrons?" "Squadron leader Rachel Wong has her pilots ready. 200 fighters, all hidden in what looks like cargo containers. The Zephyrians will think we are storing space rocks." Ben nodded and continued his walk. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was preparing for casualties. Not from the coming battle, but from all the human ships that had been damaged in fake fights over the past few months. "Doc, how are our actors holding up?" Ben asked. "They are fine. A few bruises from making their injuries look real, but nothing serious. I have to admit, Lieutenant Sam Clark deserves an award for acting. I almost believed he was really hurt last week." Ben smiled. Sam Clark had been wounded in a fake battle with Zephyrian scouts. He had acted so well that even some of their own people thought he was dying. The Zephyrians had reported back that human medical technology was primitive and their soldiers were weak. If only they knew that Sam had been perfectly fine the whole time. Back on Earth, Admiral Grace Kelly stood in the real command center, hidden deep underground. Above her, a fake command center was full of people running around and looking scared. The Zephyrians would see exactly what they expected to see. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Amy Foster, "the enemy fleet is 2 hours out. All our ships are in position." Grace looked at the huge map showing the solar system. Red dots marked the Zephyrian ships, moving in confident formation toward Earth. Blue dots showed the human ships, scattered and apparently trying to run away. But Grace could see the real map on a different screen. Hidden throughout the solar system were hundreds of human ships and weapon platforms, all waiting for the signal. The Zephyrians were flying into the biggest ambush in galactic history. "Send a message to all our hidden forces," Grace ordered. "Phase 1 is almost complete. Prepare for Phase 2. Admiral Vextar was feeling very pleased with himself as his fleet entered the human solar system. His scouts had found the human defense forces, and they were even weaker than expected. Only about 50 ships, most of them already running away. "This will be over in an hour," he told his crew. "Begin the attack. Target their military ships first, then their orbital platforms. We will save their planet for last. I want them to watch their defenders die." The Zephyrian fleet split into attack groups, each one larger than the entire human defense force. They moved forward with confidence, their weapons charging and their shields up. Commander Alex Turner watched them come. His heart was beating fast, but not from fear. After months of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. "All ships, this is Turner," he said into his radio. "Remember, we are terrified Earth defenders making a brave but hopeless last stand. Make it look good." The first Zephyrian attack group opened fire. Bright energy beams shot across space toward the human ships. Alex's Guardian was hit several times, and he made sure to act like the damage was worse than it really was. "This is Guardian," he shouted into the radio. "We are taking heavy damage. Shields down to 30%. In reality, his shields were at 98%. The Zephyrian weapons were much weaker than they looked. Around him, his squadron put on the performance of their lives. Ships spun out of control when they were barely scratched. Pilots screamed about hull breaches that did not exist. Some ships even pretended to explode, using fireworks to make it look real while the crew secretly escaped in hidden pods. Admiral Vexitar watched the battle and smiled. The humans were fighting bravely, but they stood no chance. Their weapons could not even scratch Zephyrian armor. Their ships moved like they were stuck in mud. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "human resistance is collapsing faster than expected. Should we slow down the attack?" "No," Vextar said. "Crush them completely. I want every human ship destroyed before we begin bombarding their planet." He had no idea that deep in the asteroid belt, Captain Ben Hughes was watching the battle on his screens and smiling. "Phase 1 complete," Ben said into his communicator. "Admiral Kelly, they have committed their entire fleet. Not a single ship held back." "Excellent," came Grace's voice. "All units, prepare for Phase 2. It is time to show these aliens what humans can really do." Admiral Grace Kelly took a deep breath and pressed the big red button on her console. Across the solar system, hidden transmitters sent out a single code word: thunder. Everything changed in an instant. Commander Alex Turner stopped pretending. His ship was damaged. The Guardian suddenly burst forward with incredible speed, moving faster than any Zephyrian ship could follow. His weapons, which had been missing their targets on purpose, now fired with deadly accuracy. "What is happening?" shouted Admiral Vextar as he watched human ships transform before his eyes. The slow, clumsy vessels suddenly moved like lightning. Their weak weapons now tore through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. "Sir, the humans are not what they seemed," called his tactical officer. "Their ships are much more advanced than our reports indicated," but that was only the beginning. In the asteroid belt, the USS Sovereign dropped its disguise. What had looked like a simple mining station suddenly revealed itself as the largest warship anyone had ever seen. It was twice the size of Admiral, Vextar's flagship and covered in weapons that made Zephyrian technology look like toys. Captain Ben Hughes stood on the Sovereign's bridge and smiled. "All hands, this is the captain. Drop the act. Show them what we can really do." The massive ship's engines came online, glowing with power that bent space around them. Weapon ports opened along its hull, revealing cannons that could destroy planets. Fighter bays that had been hidden as cargo containers now opened to release hundreds of advanced combat ships. Throughout the solar system, the same transformation was happening everywhere. Space junk turned into destroyers. Broken satellites became weapon platforms. Cargo ships revealed themselves as battle cruisers. Colonel Maria Santos laughed as her small moon base dropped its holographic disguise. Hidden beneath the fake buildings was a fortress that covered half the moon's surface. Massive railguns emerged from the ground, pointing their barrels at the Zephyrian fleet. "Fire!" Maria commanded. The railguns shot metal projectiles at incredible speed. Each shot moved so fast that it was almost impossible to see. When they hit Zephyrian ships, the results were devastating. Entire vessels simply disappeared in explosions of twisted metal. Admiral Vextar could not believe what he was seeing. His mighty invasion fleet was being torn apart by enemies that had appeared from nowhere. Worse, his own ships were starting to malfunction. "Admiral, our computers are acting strange," reported his communications officer. "Systems are shutting down by themselves." Commander Lisa Park smiled from her hidden control room on Earth. For months during those fake battles, human ships had been planting computer viruses in Zephyrian systems. The aliens thought they were winning, so they never checked for sabotage. Now, those viruses were activating. Zephyrian ships found their weapons shutting down, their shields failing, and their navigation systems going crazy. Some ships started firing on their own allies by mistake. "This is impossible," Vextar roared. "Humans are supposed to be primitive. Their technology is supposed to be garbage." Dr. Nathan Cole would have laughed if he could hear that. From his laboratory on Earth, he watched his greatest creations in action. Human ships moved using gravity control that the Zephyrians could not even detect. Their weapons fired compressed dark matter that could punch through any known armor. The technology was so advanced that Zephyrian sensors could not properly understand what they were seeing. Squadron leader Rachel Wong led her fighters out of the USS Sovereign's bays. Each fighter was smaller than a Zephyrian patrol ship, but more powerful than their cruisers. They danced through space with impossible grace, destroying enemy vessels with single shots. "This is Red Squadron," Rachel called over the radio. "Target, rich environment out here. These aliens do not stand a chance." Her fighters moved in perfect formation, their pilots trained to work together like a single mind. They had been preparing for this moment for years, hiding their true abilities while the galaxy thought humans were weak. Captain Jake Morrison brought the USS Liberty alongside a Zephyrian heavy cruiser. The alien ship was 5 times larger than his vessel, but Jake was not worried. "Fire main guns," he ordered. The Liberty's weapons, which had seemed so weak before, now revealed their true power. A beam of pure energy cut the Zephyrian cruiser in half like a knife through butter. Jake opened a channel to the dying alien ship. "This is Captain Morrison of the USS Liberty. You should have done your homework better." Throughout the battle, Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being destroyed piece by piece. Ships that had seemed invincible were being swatted aside like flies. His 300 vessels were down to 200, then 100, then 50. "Sir, we need to retreat," his second-in-command urged. "This is not a battle, it is a massacre." But Vextar's pride would not let him run. "Send out a distress signal to the Empire. Tell them humans are not what they seem." He tried to send the message, but nothing happened. Unknown to him, human, forces had already destroyed all the communication relays between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. No word of this battle would reach his people. Dr. Elena Rodriguez activated another surprise from the USS Sovereign. A pulse of energy spread out from the ship, and suddenly every Zephyrian vessel found their faster-than-light drives shutting down. "What did you do?" Vextar demanded over an open channel. Captain Ben Hughes appeared on his screen, no longer pretending to be weak or scared. "We turned off your escape route, Admiral. No one leaves this system until we say so. But how? This technology should not exist, Ben smiled. Admiral Vexitar, let me tell you something about humans. We have been exploring space a lot longer than you think. What you saw today was not us fighting back. It was us coming home. The truth hit Vexitar like a physical blow. Humans were not a primitive species that had recently discovered space travel. They were something much older and much more dangerous. On Earth, Admiral Grace Kelly opened a channel to the remaining Zephyrian ships. Her voice was calm and cold as she spoke. Admiral Vexitar, this is Admiral Kelly of the Human Defense Force. You came here thinking you would conquer a weak planet. Instead, you found something very different. She paused, letting her words sink in. For too long, the Zephyrian Empire has terrorized innocent worlds. You have enslaved species, destroyed planets, and spread fear across the galaxy. Today, that ends. Vexitar's flagship shuddered as human weapons struck it. His shields were failing, his weapons were offline, and his crew was in panic. Surrender now, Grace continued, and you will be treated as prisoners of war. Continue fighting, and we will show you what real human weapons can do. Around the solar system, the few remaining Zephyrian ships found themselves surrounded by hundreds of human vessels. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and completely cut off from help. Admiral Vexitar looked at his ruined fleet and realized the horrible truth. The Zephyrian Empire had not come to conquer Earth. They had flown straight into a trap set by the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And now, there was no way out. Admiral Vexitar's hands shook as he stared at the destruction around him. Of his mighty fleet of 300 ships, only 47 were still working. Even those were badly damaged and surrounded by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. Admiral, his communications officer said with fear in his voice, the humans are demanding our surrender. Never, Vexitar snarled. The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender to anyone. But even as he spoke, more human ships were revealing themselves throughout the solar system. What had looked like empty space was now full of enemy vessels, all pointing their weapons at the trapped Zephyrian fleet. Squadron leader Tony Kim led his fighter wing around the crippled Zephyrian flagship. His small ship was no bigger than a shuttle, but its weapons could destroy a battleship. The aliens had never seen anything like human fighter technology. Admiral Vexitar, Tony said over the radio, this is Squadron Leader Kim. Your ship is surrounded. Your weapons are offline. Your shields are down. Do you really want to watch more of your people die? Inside his ship, Vexitar looked around at his crew. Many were wounded. Their faces showed fear and confusion. These proud Zephyrian warriors had never been defeated before. On the USS Sovereign, Captain Ben Hughes was coordinating the final phase of the battle. The massive ship's bridge was a marvel of human technology, with screens showing every part of the solar system. Captain, reported engineer Danny Wright, all Zephyrian ships are disabled. Their weapons are offline, and their engines are dead. They cannot fight and they cannot run. Good work, Ben said. Now comes the hard part. We need some of them alive to send a message back to their empire. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked up from her station. Captain, I am reading massive energy buildup on the Zephyrian flagship. I think Admiral Vexitar is trying to self-destruct his ship. Not on my watch, Ben said firmly. Lock onto their ship with our tractor beam. If he wants to blow up, he can do it after we get some answers. The USS Sovereign's tractor beam grabbed the flagship, holding it in place with technology that the Zephyrians could not understand or break free from. On Earth, General Chris Barnes was watching the battle from a hidden command center under the Rocky Mountains. Around him, massive screens showed the positions of every ship in the solar system. General, called his aide, Lieutenant Sam Clark, we are receiving surrender signals from 12 Zephyrian ships. The others are still refusing to give up. Let me talk to their admiral, Chris said. Admiral Vexitar's image appeared on the screen. The proud alien looked beaten and angry. His uniform was torn, and there was blood on his scaled face. Admiral Vexitar, Chris said calmly, I am General Barnes of the Human Defense Force. Your fleet is finished. Your ships are destroyed or disabled. Your empire has no idea where you are or what happened to you. You think you have won, Vextar spat. But the empire has thousands of ships. They will come for you. Will they? Chris smiled. Admiral, let me show you something. The screen changed to show a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian military bases and fleets. As Vextar watched, the red dots began disappearing one by one. What is that? Vextar whispered. Admiral, while you were attacking Earth, human forces were attacking your empire. Every military base, every fleet, every weapon factory. We have been planning this for a very long time. Captain Rachel Wong was leading one of those attacks thousands of light years away. Her task force had appeared at a major Zephyrian military base and destroyed it before the defenders even knew they were under attack. Target eliminated, Rachel reported over long-range communications. The Zephyrian Third Fleet no longer exists. All across the galaxy, similar reports were coming in. Human ships hidden for decades in the dark spaces between stars were striking at Zephyrian targets everywhere at once. Commander Lisa Park coordinated the attacks from her intelligence center on Earth. Her computer screens showed the collapse of the Zephyrian Empire in real time. Admiral Kelly, Lisa reported, 90% of Zephyrian military forces have been eliminated. The remaining 10% are scattered and cut off from each other. Admiral Grace Kelly nodded with satisfaction. Good work, Lisa. How are our liberation forces doing? Excellent. We have freed 17 slave worlds so far. The local populations are helping us find Zephyrian prison camps and work sites. This had been the real goal all along. The human attack on Earth was just a distraction. While the Empire's main fleet was being destroyed, human forces were freeing every world the Zephyrians had conquered. Dr. Nathan Cole was particularly proud of one piece of technology. His teams had developed a way to shut down the Zephyrian planet-killer weapons before they could be used. Every world that had lived in fear of destruction was now safe. Dr. Cole, came a message from Admiral Kelly. Your planet-killer neutralizers worked perfectly. The Zephyrians cannot threaten any more worlds. Glad to help, Admiral, Nathan replied. We have also captured most of their weapon factories intact. The freed species can use them to defend themselves. Back in the solar system, Admiral Vextar was slowly realizing the full scale of human planning. This was not a lucky victory. It was the result of years, maybe decades of preparation. How long have you been planning this? He asked General Barnes. A very long time, Admiral. You see, humans are not originally from Earth. We are refugees from another galaxy, one that was destroyed by an empire very much like yours. Vextar's eyes widened. That is impossible. Our records show humans first, achieved spaceflight only 50 years ago. Your records show what we wanted them to show, Chris explained. We have been in space for thousands of years. We settled on Earth to hide and rebuild our strength. When we discovered your empire enslaving other species, we knew it was time to act. Captain Jake Morrison brought the USS Liberty alongside another disabled Zephyrian ship. Through the viewports, he could see alien crew members looking out in fear and amazement. This is Captain Morrison to all Zephyrian vessels, he announced. You have two choices: surrender and help us free the worlds your empire enslaved, or be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to decide. One by one, the surviving Zephyrian ships began sending surrender signals. Their crews were soldiers, but they were not stupid. Fighting humans was clearly impossible. Admiral Vextar was the last to give up. He looked around his ruined bridge and thought about his empire, now in flames across the galaxy. Everything he had believed about Zephyrian power and human weakness had been wrong. I surrender, he said quietly. Smart choice, General Barnes replied. Admiral, you and your surviving crew will be taken to a prison facility. You will be treated well, but you will also help us undo the damage your empire has caused. What do you mean? You are going to help us find every hidden Zephyrian base, every secret weapon, every enslaved population. Your empire kept detailed records, and we want all of them. Vextar realized that his humiliation was just beginning. Not only had his fleet been destroyed, but he was going to be forced to help his enemies finish destroying everything he had worked to build. On the USS Sovereign, Captain Ben Hughes looked out at the debris field that had once been the pride of the Zephyrian Empire. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. "All ships, this is Captain Hughes," he announced. "Prepare for hyperspace jump. We have an empire to finish dismantling." Around the solar system, hundreds of human ships prepared to leave. They had revealed themselves to destroy the Zephyrian threat, and now they would spread across the galaxy to ensure it never rose again. The age of the Zephyrian Empire was over. The age of human protection had begun. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the prison facility on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Through the transparent walls, he could see Admiral Vextar sitting at a table, looking much older than before. The proud Zephyrian leader was now helping humans locate the last hidden bases of his former empire. "Admiral," Jake said as he entered the room, "we found the slave camps you told us about on Kepler 442b. 3 million people freed yesterday." Vextar looked up with tired eyes. "How many does that make total?" "Over 2 billion beings freed from Zephyrian control," Jake replied. 67 different species, all returning to their homeworlds or finding new ones. The former admiral nodded slowly. "I never thought about the numbers before. We just called them resources." "They were never resources, Admiral. They were people." Jake sat down across from Vextar. Over the past months, he had spent many hours talking with the captured Zephyrian leader. Slowly, Vextar was beginning to understand the evil his empire had done. "Captain Morrison," Vextar said quietly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. Your people could have destroyed every Zephyrian world. You have the power. Why did you not?" Jake thought for a moment. "Because we are not you, Admiral. We do not believe in conquest or slavery. We fight only to protect others. But many of my people still hate humans. They think you destroyed their way of life. Their way of life was built on the suffering of others." Jake said firmly. "We gave them a chance to build something better." And it was true. After the destruction of the Zephyrian military, human forces had not attacked civilian populations. Instead, they had helped Zephyrian worlds transition to new governments that did not depend on enslaving other species. Some Zephyrians had welcomed the change. Others were still angry. But none could argue with the results. The galaxy was more peaceful now than it had been in centuries. Admiral Grace Kelly walked through the corridors of the USS Sovereign, now serving as the flagship of the Human Protection Fleet. The massive ship was no longer hiding in asteroid fields. It traveled openly through the galaxy, a symbol of human power and protection. "Admiral," called Commander Lisa Park, "we have a situation on Rigel 7. A group of former Zephyrian officers has taken over a mining facility. They are holding workers hostage." "How many ships do we need?" Grace asked. "Captain Ben Hughes thinks he can handle it with just the Sovereign and 2 escort ships." "Good. Tell him to be careful. These last holdouts are desperate, and desperate people do stupid things." Grace continued her walk to the observation deck. Through the huge windows, she could see dozens of other human ships traveling with them. The Human Protection Fleet was now the most powerful force in the galaxy, but it used that power very differently than the Zephyrians had. On the bridge, Captain Ben Hughes was preparing for another mission. Since the fall of the Zephyrian Empire, his ship had been busy. There were always former Zephyrian forces causing trouble, or slave worlds that needed help rebuilding. "Captain," reported Engineer Danny Wright, "all systems ready for hyperspace. Jump, the new gravity drives are working perfectly." "Good," Ben said. "Dr. Rodriguez, how are our passengers?" "The Rigel 7 relief team is ready to go. Medical supplies, food, and construction equipment. As soon as we deal with the hostage situation, we can start helping the workers rebuild their lives." This was the new reality. Human ships did not just fight battles. They carried supplies, doctors, teachers, and engineers to help liberated worlds recover from centuries of Zephyrian rule. Squadron leader Tony Kim was training new pilots on the USS Sovereign's flight deck. These were not all human pilots. The fleet now included volunteers from dozens of species, all working together to keep the galaxy safe. Remember, Tony told his mixed class of human and alien students, our job is to protect, not to conquer. We use our weapons only when we have no other choice. One of his students, a young Andromedan named Zix, raised her hand. Instructor Kim, what if the bad guys have better weapons than us? Tony smiled. Zix, after what human technology did to the Zephyrian Empire, I do not think we need to worry about that for a very long time. The students laughed. It was true. Human weapons and ships were so advanced that no other known species could match them. But humans were careful to share their technology only with those who promised to use it for protection, never for conquest. Dr. Nathan Cole was now running a special academy on Mars where the best minds from across the galaxy worked together to develop new technology. His latest project was a faster way to travel between stars, which would make it easier to help distant worlds. Dr. Cole called his assistant Dr. Elena Rodriguez. The new hyperspace engine test was successful. We can now cross the galaxy in days instead of weeks. Excellent, Nathan replied. The faster we can move, the faster we can respond to problems. But Nathan was also working on something else. Deep in his laboratory, he was developing technology that could restore dead worlds. Some planets had been so damaged by Zephyrian strip mining that they seemed beyond help. Nathan was determined to bring them back to life. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Chris Barnes was dealing with a different kind of problem. Representatives from dozens of species were asking to join the Human Protection Fleet. Everyone wanted to be on the winning side. General, said his aide, Lieutenant Sam Clark, the Centaurian Republic wants to contribute 50 ships to the fleet. The Vegan Alliance is offering 100. Tell them we appreciate the offer, Chris said. But we need to be careful. We do not want the fleet to become so big that we cannot control it. This was a real concern. Human technology was so powerful that if it fell into the wrong hands, it could be used to create a new empire even worse than the Zephyrians. Humans had to be very careful about who they trusted. Captain Rachel Wong was leading a special mission to the former Zephyrian capital, world. The planet's new government had asked for help in dismantling the massive monuments to conquest that filled their cities. Captain, reported her engineering officer, the statue of Emperor Vexcar has been safely removed. The local people want to build a memorial to the slaves who died building it. Good idea, Rachel said. Make sure our people help with the construction. We want this memorial to last forever. This was part of the healing process. The galaxy had to remember what the Zephyrian Empire had done, so it would never happen again. Back on Europa, Jake Morrison was finishing his latest conversation with Admiral Vextar. The former Zephyrian leader had become surprisingly helpful in the months since his capture. Admiral, Jake said as he prepared to leave, there is something I want you to know. What is that, Captain? Your cooperation has saved millions of lives. The information you have given us has helped us find and shut down the last Zephyrian slave operations. That means something. Vextar was quiet for a long moment. Captain Morrison, do you think the galaxy will ever forgive the Zephyrian people for what our empire did? Admiral, the galaxy is not angry at the Zephyrian people. It was angry at the Zephyrian Empire. There is a difference. I hope you are. Right. Jake stood to leave, then turned back. Admiral, would you like to know the truth about humans? The real truth? Vextar looked up with interest. Yes, we are not from this galaxy at all. We come from Andromeda. Our home galaxy was destroyed by an empire very much like yours. We barely escaped with our lives. Vextar stared in shock. You are refugees? We were refugees. We came to the Milky Way to hide and rebuild. When we discovered your empire doing the same things that destroyed our home, we knew we had to act. So this was not conquest for you. It was prevention, Jake finished. We could not let another galaxy die the way ours did. Jake left the prison facility and walked to his ship. Outside, through the dome that protected the base, he could see Jupiter hanging in the black sky. It was beautiful and peaceful. Across the galaxy, the Human Protection Fleet continued its work. Former slave worlds were becoming independent nations. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Empire were now open to everyone. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to work together. The galaxy was healing, And somewhere in the deep space between galaxies, human long-range sensors were watching for threats that might come from beyond. The Zephyrian Empire was finished, but humans knew that evil could rise anywhere. They would be ready. Admiral Grace Kelly stood on the bridge of the USS Sovereign and looked out at the stars. The ship was heading for its next mission, carrying supplies to a world that was still recovering from Zephyrian rule. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we are receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to thank humanity for our service to the galaxy." "Send them our regards," Grace replied. "But remind them that our work is not finished. As long as there are people who need protection, the human protection fleet will be there." She smiled as she thought about the future. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers that had not yet been discovered. But whatever came next, humanity would face it as they always had, together and in defense of those who could not defend themselves. The age of empires was over. The age of protection had begun, and the humans who had once been refugees were now the guardians of peace in their new home among the stars.